Hey guys, I'm going to do a little bit different video right now. I have two special guests. You're really going to want to know what they have to say. But before I introduce you to them, have you ever heard of a CMU? It's called a Communications Management Unit. It's like this special prison within a prison. And by way of introduction, let me play this video clip from this TED Talk. You just check out what this guy has to say.
I began investigating the most secretive and experimental prison units in the United States for so-called second-tier terrorists. The government calls these units Communications Management Units, or CMUs. Prisoners and guards call them Little Guantanamo. They are islands unto themselves, but unlike Gitmo, they exist right here at home, floating within larger federal prisons. There are two CMUs. One was opened inside the prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, and the other is inside this prison in Marion, Illinois. Neither of them underwent the formal review process that is required by law when they were opened.
Now, I'm going to play that last part again. Listen to what he has to say. Check this out.
Neither of them underwent the formal review process that is required by law when they were opened.
That means according to the Fed's own law, these two CMUs, or basically maximum security prisons, are in existence outside of their own codified laws. What that means is this is an illegal prison. One's in Terre Haute, Indiana, and one's in Marion, Illinois. Now, the reason I brought my two guests on is because there is a guy who before he was put into one of these CMUs, championed the cause of individual liberties. And that's one of the reasons he's in one of these CMUs. Basically, it's a prison for political prisoners. It's a place for individuals who the government wants to shut up. So my guests are Jordan Page. Jordan's a musician. You're gonna hear more about that in the next video. And Angela Clemens. Now, the guy that I'm talking about is this guy right here. His name is Schaefer Cox. And his name may sound familiar because about 4 weeks ago, I did a video on him and showed you why he was in prison. But I kind of want to recap that right here by asking Angela. First of all, Angela, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why Schaefer Cox is in prison. What did he do to get there?
I'm Angela Clemens, and I run Schaefer's Angels, a nonprofit to help Schaefer Cox. And Schaefer Cox is an innocent man. He has never committed any crimes. He was put in the prison for speaking up against corruption, child trafficking, and drug trafficking. He's been in the CMU almost the entirety of the time, with the exception of 6 months. In addition to the terrorists that you're talking about, they put what they call balancers in there. So they'll throw a few other people in there so that they don't get in too much trouble for holding just one religious group.
Okay, so explain some of the conditions of this CMU, because what this guy just said on this TED Talk, and this is a journalist who does a lot of investigative reporting on these kind of prisons. He called it a second-tier terrorist prison. And he said the prison guards call it Little Guantanamo. So how is Schaefer and the other prisoners, how are they treated by the prison guards in this prison?
Well, we have numerous reports and lawsuits out through Center of Constitutional Rights and other places of the tortures that go on there. The prison is run after Chinese thought reform. They have been 4-point shackled for days. They're not supposed to be 4-point shackled to a bed where their hands are shackled and their feet are shackled. They've abused that torture. They have extreme sleep deprivation, where they will go and wake them up every 30 minutes. They have been exposed to extreme temperature deviation, where at times the floor is so hot that you can't even touch it with your feet. And other times it's so cold that the water in the toilet freezes. They've been known to be chained in very awkward and humiliating positions for long periods of time.
Let me ask you, let me just cut in real quick, Angela. What's the purpose of these prison guards treating these prisoners this way? I mean, are they trying to extract information? What's the reason for this torture?
Well, I don't know of any good reason to torture another human being. So I don't know exactly. Maybe Jordan knows more on that.
I mean, they used this kind of tactics in Guantanamo Bay for many, many years. They would put prisoners in humiliating stress positions for hours and hours and hours and play like death metal music at deafening volume to try to drive them insane. They would waterboard them. They would do extreme temperatures, sleep deprivation. All these things are torture methods that were sanctioned under the Bush administration and continued to be under the Obama administration. So when Guantanamo was supposedly, when that program was supposedly shut down, which I'm not convinced that it was, a lot of those prisoners were moved to these facilities. So all the guys that, all the, you know, so-called ISIS terrorists and whatnot, Islamic extremists that were down in Guantanamo were moved to the CMUs, and it's just been business as usual. And unfortunately, Schaefer is caught up in all of that. Motives, I mean, there's probably a bunch of BS motives that the state would say were, or they would deny that it was even happening. I mean, you see, you know, people that get taken out of the CMU get sent back because they spilled the beans, they told the truth. Schaefer spilled the beans on a murder that happened back in November. He leaked the information to his law team over the phone, and he was punished by being sent to their worst dungeon in the whole place underground in pitch black for over a month, to the point where he forgot what a human face looked like. You know, like it's just abject cruelty. You know, the Stanley Milgram experiments dictate a lot of this stuff about human nature and just the nature of holding a man prisoner, and what the psychology of that is. As Angela said, there's no good reason to torture a human being, but they may be trying to extract information or just wear them down, and be able to have a greater degree of control. You know, we're talking about the state and what the state will do, so there isn't necessarily any rhyme or reason to it. But I would say, you know, personally, I would say it's probably just pretty malicious.
Well, and guys, I want to convey the seriousness of this, because when it says right here on SchaeferCox.com, or I'm sorry, freeschaefer.com, and really go to that website. I'll leave all the links in the description below. When it says Schaefer Cox is a political prisoner, for some, I don't know why, maybe it's just me, but I put in my mind like a white collar posh prison. This is the exact opposite of that. This is, like Jordan was saying, this is like a dungeon where you have no idea from one moment to the next if you're going to be aroused out of a deep sleep, because you've only been asleep for 30 minutes and they only let you sleep for 30 minutes a day. You don't know if you're going to be put in solitary confinement in a dark dungeon or torture or whatever. This is not a vacation house by any means. This is actually one of, if not the worst prisons that you can possibly put a human being in. And this is where this guy Schaefer Cox is. It says Schaefer Cox is a political prisoner held in an illegal U.S. prison called a CMU located in Indiana. After Alaska dismissed the bogus charges, now these charges were dismissed, guys, by throwing out the whole case against him, Schaefer was targeted by the U.S. government. Angela, can you speak a little bit to that? I mean, how can the guy be dismissed on charges but then targeted by the U.S. government? What's the rationale for that? What's the charge?
Well, the two long charges were solicitation and conspiracy, and it was they're just a railroaded, trumped up, framed charges. The only way they were able to even get those charges was withholding exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that proves his innocence. So they took him to federal court. They're out of jurisdiction. It was a state case, and the state threw it out, and the federal government came in and took it over, and it's really, they're holding him illegally for the last 8 years.
If you guys have seen any video of Schaefer Cox, he reminds me of a young Ron Paul. The guy is totally in line with the Constitution. He champions the cause of truth, freedom, and individual rights. And this guy is sitting there in prison after having championed the cause of individual rights for others. He's now sitting in a prison being punished for absolutely nothing. So my next question is, and I want to go back to the Schaefer Cox website. It says, in 2011, after a rigged trial, he was convicted and sent to one of the world's most inhumane prisons. In August 2017, one of the main charges was dropped by the Ninth Circuit Court, but Schaefer still sits in prison. And I'm watching this TED Talk last night, and I'm thinking, because the guy in TED Talk named 3 or 4 prisoners, I can't remember. Schaefer Cox was not one of them, but he said one of the prisoners was in there because he was an animal rights activist. The guy spent some time in the CMU and then was released. But then 6 months later, the feds knocked on his door and brought him back to the CMU because somewhere along the line in that 6 months, he had written about his experience in the CMU. So this is something they don't even want you to talk about. And I was just thinking, last night when I was sitting on the couch watching this video, I was just thinking, what's to keep a knock from coming to my door and federal authorities putting me in a CMU? You know how much I talk about the government and expose government corruption, and we're going to talk about what Schaefer specifically exposed in a second. But if you put a comment on one of my videos, underneath one of my videos, you could be the target to be sent to a CMU or some maximum security prison, because frankly, the government does not want people talking about things that are going to shine the light on them. So, Angela, what's are you able to communicate with Schaefer while he sits there in prison?
Yes, I'm in communication with him.
And like what phone calls? Can you email him?
Well, actually, right now I can only receive snail mail with Schaefer. The prison actually blocked me on April 10th, 2018. They said that I was passing third-party communications, which means there was a very strong supporter who had said some great things about Schaefer, so I had shared that information with Schaefer, and the prison blocked me from communicating with him at all. 6 months later, almost 7 months later, they restored it where I can only use snail mail with him. So I can't receive phone calls or emails with him right now.
Is that the same with you as well, Jordan?
No, so far I am able to email with Schaefer and receive phone calls from him. I've received one phone call from him about 3 weeks ago. He gets 2 15-minute phone calls a week that are heavily monitored. In the last minute, they give you a warning, beep, 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 and then it's a hard stop at 15 minutes. But I'm able to communicate with him through the Core Links email system. And of course, that's heavily monitored too. So I'm careful about the language that I use or what I say. We keep it pretty personal rather than any kind of any other kind of subject wise. But I'm able to share just personal things with him and give him encouragement. I send him just updates on how we're doing with the song that I've written for him and the music video that we've just released on the anniversary of his arrest, and what the response has been, which has been overwhelmingly positive and a lot of love. And and I send him scriptures to encourage him. So we go back and forth.
Okay, what I was trying to find it on Schaefer's website while you guys were talking, but and either one of you, Angela or Jordan, answer this. What specifically in Alaska did Schaefer expose that got him in all this hot water?
Well, he was exposing a specific house called the Ocean View House, where politicians were doing child pedophilia. And he was also exposing some of the drug trafficking that was coming in and out that the authorities were involved in.
This story that I'm about to read you is on page 2 under the Schaefer Cox story. Check this out, because this kind of links with a couple of my other videos where you see Hollywood and mainstream media mainlining pedophilic behavior, which is completely disgusting. It kind of goes back to that 10 or 11-year-old kid named Desmond is Amazing, where MSNBC had him on parading, coming down the runway. They had this video where he's basically doing a strip tease at this gay bar and people are handing him dollar bills. That's the kind of crap that mainstream media wants to normalize.
Desmond, you're one of the youngest and first drag queen/kids, and I've heard.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
So check this out. Oil pipeline service company executive Bill Allen, who's been spared prosecution on multiple counts of sexual abuse of minors in exchange for his 2008 testimony against pro-Second Amendment Alaska Senator Ted Stevens, was among those implicated. The statewide drug task force supplied children for sex to a number of state and federal officials in exchange for those officials' cooperation in concealing the ongoing illicit drug trafficking activities of statewide drug task force. So basically, Schaefer Cox was shining the light on this garbage that was going on with authorities and children and exposing this kind of a pedophilia ring. And it wasn't long after that that Schaefer Cox gets incarcerated in the CMU. And Angela, if I'm out of bounds on that, let me know. Is that a pretty accurate depiction of what's going on?
Yes, very. Mm-hmm.
You guys got to understand that this worldwide pedophilia, satanic child sex abuse ring is the most protected, conspiracy there is of any conspiracy that goes on. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy factualist. Of any conspiracy that's happening, that is the most well-funded, well-protected, and just darkest evil one that there is. So as soon as somebody starts naming names, I mean, you can talk about Pizzagate all day long, and the average person just their eyes glaze over. But you start naming names and connecting dots and providing evidence, then they're going to immediately hone in on you and take you down.
And just as an amen of what Jordan says, here's how high this goes. And I'm sure it goes even higher. See this guy on the right-hand side of Bush too? This is Dennis Hastert. He was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, third in line for the presidency. And you know where this guy is right now? I don't even know if maybe he's not in prison right now, but he was convicted and here's the judge's exact terms for Dennis Hastert. He was a serial child molester. That's what the judge called him, and basically threw the book at him, but throwing the book at a federal authority got him 17 months in jail. But what Jordan's saying is this sex trafficking thing is not a conspiracy theory. This is an absolute, undeniable, objective, provable fact, and it goes as high as the presidency, guys. So when somebody wants to dismiss people for saying, oh, yeah, child sex trafficking, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's a huge deal. Tens of thousands of kids go missing every year. And so that brings us back to Schaefer Cox. Schaefer, I used to think it was silly when I would see somebody's name on a T-shirt saying, so-and-so is you, so-and-so is me, Garner is you, the guy who died in that New York incident where the cop choked him out, or Philando Castile is you. It's true. What happened to Philando Castile searching for his ID and getting shot 7 times by that cop could have happened to us. What happened to Schaefer Cox could literally happen to us tonight or tomorrow or anytime in the future. If we don't stand up for people like Schaefer Cox, then who's going to be there to stand up for us when our time comes? Because basically our time has come. This is not the land of the free and home of the brave. This is the land of the slave, guys. So just think about Dennis Hastert. Think about all these people who are in these high positions that are taking advantage of these little helpless kids. Jordan, as far as you know, I mean, is there any light at the end of the tunnel for Schaefer? I know there was something that just came up, and I'd like you to speak to that, but it was thrown out. So when can we expect this guy to get out of jail, or do you think he's going to be in there for the entire 26 years?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because last month, one of the judges in Schaefer's case ordered that all the exculpatory evidence Angela referenced earlier, he ordered it all to be released. So this is a major win in this case, because all that evidence is what got his first case thrown out for lack of evidence. There is no evidence against Schaefer. It doesn't exist. They used circumstantial hypothetical evidence to convict him and had to hide all of the evidence that would have set him free, that proved his innocence. So all of that evidence is now in process of being released. Angela can speak in depth to that, but we are very, very encouraged by this recent ruling, which was timed so perfectly, unbeknownst to us, as far as the release of the song and of the music video, which is meant to garner public support and attention to his case. As you mentioned, it could be you, it could be me, it could be any of us that this happens to. And like the whole I am Schaefer Cox concept rings very true, because they basically weaponized the state and the prison system against one man in order to silence him, because the things that he was saying were hitting way too close to their awful, illegal, disgusting operations that they do. And you know, if they can do it to Schaefer, they can do it to anybody. So the fact that this evidence has been ordered to be released is a huge thing, and the more public support that exists for Schaefer, the faster that process will go through.
Okay, so in the interest of keeping this short, Angela, what can people do to get involved and help Schaefer out?
Well, definitely donating to his defense fund. He's fighting some hard cases right now, and it all can come together and get his other long charge dropped, which is conspiracy. That's what we're hoping, that charge will be dropped before the resentencing sometime like in this summer. And writing him letters. We're working on trying to get some things together for the pardon application for the president, and definitely downloading the song that Schaefer wrote, that Jordan wrote.
Yeah, we've released the song on March 10th, which is the anniversary of his arrest, his unlawful arrest. And I took several lines from Schaefer's book. I have it right here. The Lost Lyrics of Schaefer Cox. You can get this book on Amazon. And this book came into my possession last June at an event that I was at. Someone handed it to me and just said, "You need to have this book." So I saw the title and I knew who Schaefer Cox was just from a distance. And so I took it, read it, and was just kind of blown away by it, and was heartbroken by the poetry and the imagery and just the pain and heartache that he has gone through. And I really identified with him. I mean, we're both Christians, we're both husbands and fathers and patriots, and I just identified with him so much and felt so just horribly brokenhearted for what he has gone through. And I contacted a friend who I knew was in communication with him and was always posting about him, and she put me in touch with Angela. I had, you know, we had talked about me writing a song, so I went ahead and wrote it, and it was very much a divinely inspired, providential sort of thing. And we had, in some discussions that we all had, well, we decided to move forward to get it recorded and to do a music video. And so that was all just released on March 10th. While we were filming it, we learned that this judge had signed this order to have the exculpatory evidence released. So it all just kind of is coming together really beautifully. And so half of the proceeds of the song are going to go right to the foundation, to Schaefer's Legal Defense Fund, because I took several lines from the book and put them in the song. And so that makes Schaefer a co-author of the song. And I did that to honor him, but also to ensure that that would be the case. And because I wanted to just funnel money into the Legal Defense Fund. So the more times people download and share the song, and just the more downloads we get, the more money goes into the defense fund. But you can donate directly to the fund at freeschaefer.com. One little point about the book is that Schaefer was writing these lyrics while he was in a different prison, and they picked him up and moved him without warning, and he was forced to leave all the papers behind. And he figured that they were lost for good, that they would just be thrown out. But someone, and we don't know who, it's kind of a mystery, it's either a guard or a prisoner, found the papers, read his lyrics, and were so moved by them that they smuggled them out of the prison and got them into Schaefer's team's hands, who then published them into a book. And that book ended up in my hand, and that's where the song came from.
Guys, I really appreciate you being with me today. It's shown me that I only have a couple more minutes for this meeting. I want to end this, guys, by just saying the cornerstone of my channel has always been from day one, the golden rule. Do to others what you would want done to you. Conversely, don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to you. Just think about sitting in a prison cell, separated from your family. That's another point we didn't even bring out in this video. Schaefer Cox has a family, and he can't even reach out and touch his family and give them a hug and show them his love. Imagine yourself just being in this dark dungeon. You're alone. It's depressing. It's frustrating. It's infuriating because you know you're innocent. And all I'm asking you to do is just share this video and do whatever you can to help him out. Go to Free Schaefer. It's freeschaefer.com, right, guys?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Go to freeschaefer.com. I'm going to highlight Jordan's song in another video because I think that is worthy of its own spotlight, because what Jordan did for Schaefer and what a lot of people are doing for Schaefer is just something that's incredible to me. So please share this video, give it a like, and drop a comment down below and just let us know, you're there for Schaefer and for anybody who's in his shoes, because let's face it, if we don't stand up and speak for people who can't speak for themselves, then there's not going to be anybody around left to speak for you when the time comes for you to be incarcerated. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, and that's why we work so hard. So guys, I really appreciate you guys joining me. I will have you guys on another video because I want to get Schaefer Cox out of prison is the bottom line. And I would love to do a follow-up video where we actually see Schaefer's face on the screen and he's telling us about his experiences with the CMU.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Brian.